talk. And now we will go to our next speaker. The next speaker is Professor Chitra Pattabhiraman. Chitra is from NIMHANS, Department of Neurovirology, and she is also the Indian Alliance Early Career Fellow. And Chitra is going to speak to us on the genomic epidemiology of SARS-CoV-2 in Karnataka. Her pioneering work in the field of understanding the viral neuropathology is very commendable, and we are going to hear from Chitra soon. Chitra, can you please turn on your video and audio?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, Chitra, we can hear you.
Hi, and can you also see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. All right, thanks a lot for the invitation. And it's such an honor to be speaking among such august speakers. Many of you have been teachers and mentors for me, so this is a real honor for me. And I'm going to talk to you about genomic epidemiology of SARS-CoV-2 in Karnataka. The premise is exactly as Dr. Shyamasudha Das was saying. We wanted to ask what is the diversity of the virus, but we asked it in a very particular small geographic location. And we asked some questions about do we see how did it change over time? And in the case of Karnataka, we had very good epidemiological data that we were able to access, that the state was kind enough to provide to us. And so therefore, there were some strengths in this analysis. So this study, basically, we did it between March and May 2020. And what was the state of the world at that time? Basically, viruses had been sequenced from all parts of the world and in this time window. And before I get into the details of my talk, I want to tell you about how how we've been looking at diversity for this virus. So these
So basically, Chitra, can you kindly do full screen of your slides? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, can you see the screen now?
We can see the screen. This is a full screen, right?
No, actually, this is my.
Yeah. If you can put the full screen, it would be good.
Okay. Is this clear now?
It's still not coming as a full screen.
Sorry, just give me one sec. I'm sorry.
Put it in show mode. Show mode, please.
Yeah.
Hi, is this better now?
Yes.
Okay,
now
perfect.
Everything perfect.
So basically,
thank you.
Yeah. So basically, this is the these are all the clades of SARS-CoV-2. So for SARS-CoV-2, we have three different nomenclatures for how we look at the virus, and you can think of it as having a sort of coarse, broad view versus a very fine view. So the clades are a sort of you can think of them as sort of broader definitions. And for the purposes of my talk, when I say lineage, it's going to be a much more fine-grained analysis. So there are two clade nomenclature systems. So as you can see, in the time period that is between December 2019 to May 2020, we already had the virus spread in all parts of the world. Sequences from collected at these time points were already showing that there was a lot of diversity in different parts of the world. And according to GIS8, which is sort of this is the repository for open sharing of sequences for influenza, and then it was co-opted for COVID-19 also. They divided into 8 clades, and this became the most popular in the beginning. As you can see, between from Jan 2020 to May 2020, almost in all parts of the world, we were seeing all the clades, but the distributions were different. And how does this translate to other nomenclatures that you've heard today, which is the 19A, 19B, 20B, 20C, that is very similar to the GSIA nomenclature. So roughly 20C corresponds to GH, 20B corresponds to GR, 19A corresponds to V, and so on. And then there is a much finer way of looking at it, where which we call lineage. And the reason why the lineages here, this is A, B, are a good way to look at this problem is because we know that in China, actually both A and B were circulating. This is sort of what we think based on genetic evidence. And then from B, you get all of the other B1, B1.1, B.2, and so on. So it has some linkages both to location, as well location of origin, as well as what are the mutations that are being accumulated in that lineage. So when I'm going to talk, in my talk, I'm going to talk about the lineages. These are called pangolin lineages because that is a tool that can be used to get this classification. And just to give you a sort of background, I just wanted to say that at this time, which is May, we were already seeing that the European clades, that is GH and GR, which Dr. Shaumitra Das already mentioned, this is the DG. These are the ones that carry the DG614 mutation in the spike protein, and they were forming like a large fraction. So they were the highest in frequency. So what is the mutation rate for this virus? So the mutation rate is roughly what you expect of a genome of this size for an RNA virus. So this is basically genome size. This is the mutation rate of other known viruses. So SARS-CoV-2 is like it's among these yellows. So it's a single-stranded positive RNA virus. And what you can see is that basically we would expect it to be somewhere here because it's a 30 kb genome. And that's roughly where it is also. It's between 10 power minus 4 to 10 power minus 5 if you look at the whole genome. And so we actually did this analysis, and most of what I'm telling you is in this preprint, which looks at genomic epidemiology of which shows that multiple introductions happened into Karnataka and how it spread within the state. And that's our team. And these are the questions we asked. So we combined virus genome information with epidemiological data, and we asked, are some lineages associated with greater spread or asymptomatic or symptomatic states? How did the virus enter Karnataka? How did it spread? How did it change? So that's like that is broadly, those were broadly our questions. This is the cohort that we looked at. So these are positive cases in Karnataka between March 5th, which was when the virus was detected in Karnataka. It was reported on March 8th, and then till May 21st, roughly when the lockdowns, like the major lockdowns ended. The total number of positive cases in the state at that time was small. It was 1,578 cases, of which 369 cases had been tested at our center, and we sequenced 101 of these. The age distribution, I just wanted to point out, we had a lot of young people in our positives because of the kind of testing that was being done at that time, which is all the contacts were being tested of a particular case. And the male-female ratio of our sequence samples are similar to what was seen in the state. And we had a lot of asymptomatics compared to the number of symptomatic individuals. And in our sequencing, we tried to capture as many of the symptomatic individuals as possible. So we had 91 asymptomatic individuals whom we sequenced and 10 symptomatic individuals. Out of the people in Karnataka, that is these 1578, 700 had known contact with a COVID-19 case. But all the rest had no contacts. Most of them had history of domestic travel. Okay, and this is something important, and I want to come back to that in the end. So they had traveled to nearby states or even far away, and international travels were fewer. The state was very good at containing everyone who came in after international travel. And then, of course, we were already beginning to see people with respiratory illness with no known contacts. also like both SARI cases, that is severe respiratory infections, as well as ILIs, which are influenza-like illness. And there were few for whom contact tracing was not complete when we got the data. And there were some that were sampled from containment zones. And we didn't know which person was their contact, but the area was already had other positive cases. So they had been sampled because they were in a region that was already a sort of hotspot. So out of the contacts, we got 66 sequences, and we got quite a few sequences from the domestic travel and so on. So we tried to cover as much of what we could see the same trend as from the state. So this is how the picture looked like in this time window. So what you're seeing in purple is the sort of density of cases, and the yellow, the lime are the ones that are sequenced, the green are the ones that we had access to. So as you can see, the sort of northern districts of Karnataka is where we started seeing sequences first, and they obviously border Maharashtra. And here Bangalore obviously became a hotspot quite quickly. And it was quite clear while we were doing the sequencing that in Bangalore, there was a lot of circulation of the virus. So as Dr. Soumitra Das already mentioned, this is a sort of 30 kb genome. It has ORF, the two major replicase protein genes, followed by the spike protein, and so on, and some of the structural genes. And I just wanted to show you the genome structure before telling you what our approach was for doing the sequencing, which is basically we had tiling primers, and the adjacent pools are actually put in two different tubes so that you can amplify the genome, and you can combine. Then we combine the amplicons. We can also do sequencing of multiple samples together. This protocol was developed by the Arctic Network and is being used throughout the world. Each product is about 400 base pairs long. I used the Oxford Nanopore system to do the sequencing. So basically in the system, there is a chip, and there are pores embedded in a membrane. And as the DNA is threaded through the pore, it gets read as an electrical signal, which we then analyze as a sequence. So this is what we do. We convert electrical signals into the chemical signature of the bases. We demultiplex and acquire the acquired data. We also separate out the barcodes into individual samples. Then I use a software called Genius Prime to trim the primers because they would really interfere with our analysis. And we filter 25 base pairs from both ends, and we align and remove primers. Then we used a mapping-based assembly, and then we followed that by consensus editing. So we assembled it to the reference sequence from Wuhan, and we only called a consensus where we got more than 10 sequences. And we pretty much almost always submitted the data to GSI-Aid as soon as we got the consensus. The idea was that we needed to share data, and at that time, not that much data was being shared from India. So we really pushed for this, and many other labs in India also did this. So there were some really good sequencing efforts from different parts of India. What did we find? So first, if you look at the CT values versus the amount of the genome that was covered, you can see that at 1x, that is at least one read mapping to a base, we did not, so the coverage dropped to below 80% or below 90% once the CT value exceeded 30. So we could not get full genomes when the CT value was above 30. And we had quite a few kits that were being tested in NIMHANS at this time. So the CT values from multiple different kits. However, consistently, when at around 27, CT value 27, we stopped getting high confidence genomes, that is 10x coverage or more. And beyond 30, it was very rare for us to get good genomes. And then the total number of reads, we got some samples, we got low number of reads. And for most of the samples, we were able to get about 0.2 million reads per sample. A large number of what we sequenced mapped to the genome, showing us that our reaction was both that we were enriching for the virus. So most of the time we got above 80% of the reads that we sequenced mapping to the virus. And our average depth of coverage was like around 3000x for each base. And that did vary by CT value also. So the CT value gives you a very good idea of whether you're going to get good answers from the sequencing experiment. So this is what we found. Of the 91 genomes, we had all these different lineages. So we had A, B, B.1.1, B.1, all this B, B.1, B.1.1, and B.1.80 are European clades. Then B.4, B.6, and you can look at the sort of phylogenetic analysis. And what that tells you is that A and B are rooted in China early clades. And you get a nice separation of this B.4. And then these three, which are European clades, all of which, some of which have that DG614 mutation, they are here. And this is B.6. And this is actually a lineage also called A3I in another nomenclature. And this seemed for Karnataka to be expanding sort of lineage. The B.1, that is the sort of what Dr. Soumitra Das described as the A2A clade, that looked more contained, at least when we looked at it in May. And so this is the sort of timeline. So this is a time tree analysis. We can't trust these branch points very much. There should be a confidence interval there, but this analysis gives you a rough idea of when they branched from the rest of the tree. So B.4 branched early. It's a very distinct lineage. A is the same lineage as one of the viruses found in Wuhan. The reference sequence is here, and these are the sort of European clades. This one, I'll tell you where we think it was introduced from, but this one expanded quite a lot in the country and for us also. And so I'm just roughly telling you where the lineages were. All of these are available from the pangolin lineage nomenclatures. So basically, lineage A was found in China and later on seen in other parts of the world as well, but it's rooted here. Lineage B also. So both lineage A and B are considered sort of the ancestral lineages, and they have very distinct mutations that I will show you also. B.1, as you can see, there was an expansion, and this is one of the lineages that caused the outbreak in Italy. B.1.1, also a lineage that expanded in Europe and probably spread from there to the rest of the world. B.1.80, pretty much only seen in Europe and very few other places in the world. So we think that this also was an importation event. B.4 was seen initially from travelers from Iran, and later it was seen quite a lot in Australia also. Initially, it's also, we have a few clusters that uniquely map to B.4. And B.6 is the cluster that I think there's a lot of it in India, and we will talk a little bit about that because I think there was some lot of travel contributed. Even during lockdown, a lot of travel happened that contributed to this spread. So if you look at the lineages and you look at where we have differences in the different lineages in the genomes, it actually splits quite nicely. And you can see that there are lineage defining mutations. So what you're looking at is the genome here, frequency of mutations for the number of sequences we had for each of these lineages. And the DG614 mutation is actually this one here. Right. So there are other mutations in the spike protein, and I feel that we should look at that, particularly because B.6 is being seen in India quite a lot. And basically, I think that this virus is tending to mutate in some regions a bit more than others. That is also, the blue to white shadings are sort of the gene boundaries. And this sort of gives us an idea of where we should be looking at. And as you can see, B.4 actually separates out quite a lot from the others, as does A. All the others are like B clades that seem to have branched later. All right, so what is the first thing that we did? The first question we asked was, can we assign lineages to people for whom we did not have any information on how they got the virus before? And we were able to do that in 24 cases. And with that, from domestic travelers, we got what was being imported into the state. So in early May, we were getting importation of lineage A. And we were also getting importations of lineage B.6. B.6 was mainly from North India. B.1.80 was mainly from Maharashtra. B.1.1 was from everywhere, including Maharashtra. But what we were already seeing is that in Bangalore, there were some people who did not have any known contact or any history of travel, and they were testing positive with the together with the lineage being B.6, and this was in late April and early May. So it already told us that in the community, B.6 was already there, and there was sustained transmission of this lineage. So this is the total number of contact clusters. So Karnataka did very good contact tracing in the beginning. For every person they found positive, they traced 47 people on average. And out of the 104 contact clusters in the state, we sequenced 17 of them. And there were only 30 clusters that were greater than 10 people. And we sequenced 10 of them, 10 of those 30. So what did we find? So we asked two questions basically. One is, what was the nature of contact of the exposure of the index case? And what is the nature of contact with the spreaders? And for most of them, we got domestic travel history. And we also had a lot of people for whom we couldn't trace a source. And we found that the chances that an symptomatic person transmitted looked higher than the asymptomatic people. So these are contact tracing graphs. What you're seeing here is the 17 clusters in the state, together with the 24 people for whom we assigned lineages based on sequencing. So you can see these 4 people who were the first time that we were seeing the A lineage in the state, and all 4 of them were domestic, like they were traveling domestically. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about each of these clusters. But what I want you to take in from this, first, these are colored by lineages. You can already see there's a lot of green. So that's B.6. And you can see that most of the clusters were reasonably contained. That is, this B.1.80 did not expand into a much larger cluster than this. C1 was the biggest cluster in the state. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Here we're looking at asymptomatic and symptomatics within the same contact clusters. And you can see that symptomatic individuals often sit at the center. Okay. And the other thing that I want you to note here is that most of the people were from the same district. So these are all the districts. And you can see that most of the clusters were contained within districts. At this time, there was very little travel that was being allowed. So the largest cluster in the state had 67 people. It had 2 lineages. This was actually a pharma company, and they had visitors from Europe in Feb and March. And it looks like there was at least 2 introductions into this cluster here. And then the next, which is C2, is actually a quarantine center. And initially, it was not clear how this person even came into contact with this cluster. But now it's very clear that this person and this cluster are unlinked from each other, because B.4 is a very distinct clade, and they were in quarantine presumably because they had traveled and come back from somewhere. And as you can see, the most of the sort of things that we could not cluster, they were in the B.6 clade. This was already a very worrying thing in May, that we were going to see an expansion post-lockdown. Right, so this is what I wanted to tell you. And then we looked at the timeline of these clusters and when the cases were seen. So basically, this is the epi curve for what happened in Karnataka. The first case was seen on March 8th, and then we were seeing a low number of cases per day. So there's a number of daily cases, cumulatively 1578 cases. and then when were all the clusters diagnosed. And you can see that C1, pretty much no cases after May 1st. So although it was the largest cluster in the state, it was contained. B.4 also did not have cases in the last 10 days of when we were doing the study. But B.6, we were detecting cases throughout, and starting from April, the state was seeing it in many different clusters. And B.1.80 seemed reasonably contained, but then cases were detected after some time. So it's unclear what was going to happen to that cluster. So this is sort of the work that we did. It suggested that there were multiple introductions of the virus into the state. There was continued importation by domestic travel to other states in India. Some of the largest clusters in the states were effectively contained by end of the lockdown, but we were not able to stop the importations. So we could assign lineages to people with no known contact or travel history in this study, indicating some clusters were not effectively contained. Symptomatic individuals were spread across multiple lineages, along with asymptomatic individuals. So I'll just show you the data for that because I think I missed talking about it. If I can go back. So all the, in this phylogenetic tree, all the gray spots are symptomatic individuals. So what I want to emphasize is the fact that you see them across the phylogenetic tree, not just in one clade. So while there might be differences in transmission, because the DG614 mutation is known to infect cells better even in cell culture, it may not translate necessarily to different symptomatic states. So the strength of our study obviously was the ability to combine epidemiological data together with genomic data to get insights about spread and also suggest containment measures based on that. So the study was possible because we have a COVID testing lab at NIMHANS, and we have a really good team that was very committed to doing some of the work here, and sequencing efforts from all across India. So there were some people who submitted really early to the GISA database, and that really helped us define lineages better and get better data overall. That's our team. That's basically the Department of Neurovirology and all the people who are doing COVID, involved in COVID testing. I had a lot of help from Dr. Farhad Habib, who's a data scientist who volunteered to help with this project and helped develop the contact maps. We had data from the Department of Health and Family Welfare and a lot of input from them. So we could ask them questions like, are you sure this person was asymptomatic? And they were able to call and check for us. So that we were very fortunate to have that. And the initial, both NextTrain, so there were multiple open science efforts that really helped what we were doing. And NextTrain is one of them, that they helped us visualize our data really quickly. And I'm funded by the India Alliance, and I work at NIMHANS. Be happy to take any questions, and I thank the organizers again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Chitra, very much for really finishing dot in time. Now we have time to take few questions. The first question by Professor Kumar Somsundaram. His question is that looking into that S, L, and V clades which were there from the beginning, it looks like the G clade has taken over. Is it because of the increased infectivity by G clade, which is responsible for the higher proportion?
So it's hard to say right now, because I would say that in Bangalore, the bigger problem for us was this new B.6 lineage, which actually belongs to this A3I clade. However, and we were able to contain, I think that the trend of A2A being sort of this dominant clade might be because of the number of introductions that happened of that clade, because international travel seeded from Europe, seeded quite a lot of the clusters that we saw. So all of the early clusters, and if they've not been contained, that would result in that scenario. This is my understanding so far, and based on the data from this study period, this is what I would be comfortable saying.
Thank you, Chitra. One last question. How does the diversity in Karnataka compare with the rest of India?
So because we were able to do a much more so we have done a much more deep analysis of our sequences, and also sequenced from many different parts of Karnataka. The diversity, we did get seeded from all across the world, basically. It tells you what we already know about respiratory viruses, that you get them via travel. And so although we did close our borders, we didn't close them early enough. So it is similar to everywhere else, basically. That is the short answer.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chitra.